The annual event of swan upping takes place in the third week of July. It began around 900 years ago and originally was a way of allocating the ownership of the swans. Swans were a prized bird, eaten at many feasts, and ownership was a sign of importance and status. Now, swan upping is about counting and checking the swans to make sure they are healthy and educating people about the importance of swan upping and swan conservation. The swan uppers spend time during swan upping week talking to school groups about how to protect swans and conserve the river environment for the safety of all wildlife. The work of rescue organisations such as Swan Lifeline has increased public awareness of swan welfare and swan upping. Today the Queen may exercise her royal prerogative to claim ownership of any unmarked mute swan swimming in open waters in the UK, but this right is mainly exercised on the River Thames. There are 3 other bodies that can own swans. The Ilchester family has swans at Abbotsbury in Dorset, and the Vintners and Dyers Livery Companies own swans on the River Thames by grant of a royal charter. A livery company is a trading organisation. The Vintners traditionally traded in wine, and the Dyers were cloth dyers. Today, both companies do considerable charitable and educational work. Swan upping is a colourful sight, as the swan uppers still dress in their traditional uniforms. The royal swan uppers wear a scarlet-coloured blazer, the Vintners wear white and black, and the Dyers wear navy blue. Traditionally, the swan markers wear a swan feather in their caps. Each boat has its own special flag, and the blades of the oars match the colour of each swan upping uniform. The swan uppers use traditional Thames skiffs during swan upping week. The skiffs are clinker built, which means each edge of the wooden planks overlaps another. This design gives strength and shape to the hull and makes the construction watertight. The same design was used by the Vikings. The main body or hull of the skiff is mahogany and varnished to reduce water resistance and to preserve the wood. The oar sits between 2 oak thowel pins which are removable. The pins reduce damage to the main structure of the boat as they are worn away by the oars and can easily be replaced. The swan uppers use traditional wooden spoon oars, and the skiffs are steered by pulling ropes attached to the rudder. The Crown, the Worshipful Company of Vintners and the Worshipful Company of Dyers have maintained the tradition of swan upping on the River Thames. During swan upping, the ownership of the young cygnets is divided between the Queen and the 2 livery companies. The swan upping journey takes 5 days, and the swan uppers travel a total of 79 miles, starting in Sunbury and rowing upstream to Abingdon. The event is popular and attracts many spectators. By the end of the first day, the swan uppers reach Romney Lock near Windsor Castle, where they join together in a toast to Her Majesty the Queen, Signor of the Swans.
The Queen! Queen!
During the journey, when one of the swan uppers spots a brood or family of swans, they shout. This message is passed down to all the boats, and gradually, as a team, they create a circle around the swans in their wooden boats called skiffs.
And we gradually put one boat in, the next boat follows behind inside of it, and then we get the swans in like a pen with the shore that side and then the boats the other side. Then we shorten all the boats up and make the pen smaller and smaller, and then we take the families, we can pick them out of the water.
Boats in, making the circle smaller. Then the family of swans can be lifted safely from the water into the boats. To safely secure the birds, the swan uppers tie their legs and wings using soft ties and a simple double bow. Each cygnet is weighed in a sling and has its beak measured. Professor Christopher Perrins, the Queen's Swan Warden, plays an important role in swan upping, checking for injuries, weighing and measuring the swans. He also adds a British Trust for Ornithology metal ring as part of the recording process. The Queen's Swan Marker will establish the ownership of the male swan, the cob, and the female swan, the pen, and decides who should own the cygnets, the Queen, the Vintners or the Dyers. If they become Vintners birds, they are ringed with a metal ring marked with the Vintners symbol of barrels. If they are a Dyer's bird, they are marked with a similar ring, but this ring has bales of cloth on it. If they are the Queen's birds, then they are left unmarked for ownership. If the cygnet's legs are too small to have a ring fitted around them, they are marked with a tag put into the web of their feet. Once all the brood has been checked and the data recorded, the family are released together back into the river. They must all be released together to avoid the young cygnets straying from their parents. At the end of swan upping each year, the Queen's Swan Marker produces a report on the number of swans and cygnets accounted for, which is sent to Buckingham Palace. This important data contributes to swan conservation. Swans belong to a family of birds called Anatidae, which includes ducks and geese. Worldwide, there are several species of swans, some of which are migratory, although the mute swan does not migrate. The mute swan is one of the largest flying birds in the world and lives close to the water. Like all birds, they have feathers, lay hard-shell eggs and are warm-blooded. Mute swans have particular physical and behavioural adaptations. Their long neck helps them feed underwater and preen, smooth and clean, their feathers. The preening gland at the base of the swan's tail produces oil that the swan spreads throughout its feathers for waterproofing and insulation. Webbed feet and widely spaced legs enable effective swimming, paddling and taking off and landing on water. The swan has flight feathers and a wingspan of 2.3 metres on average, which helps to propel its heavy body in flight. Adult mute swans are usually monogamous, so have one mate for life. Their cygnets can identify their parents immediately after birth. The swans will look after their cygnets until they can fly, and the birds are territorial, so will stay in the same area, often within 2.5 miles of the riverbank.
One of the biggest problems they have is this sort of thing, fishing tackle. People who fish without due care, they cast these out to try and catch other bigger fish. The swans get caught in them, the line breaks, and the swan swims off with this and the hooks embedded in it. And without treatment, they die, and lots do every year. But there is a swan sanctuary at Eton, who, if they are notified, will come out any day of the week, all the year round, take the swans off to the sanctuary where they've got vets and operating theatres, and they remove all this sort of stuff from them. As you can see, there's a lot of it, and it's avoidable. So we try to educate people that when they go fishing, take home the unwanted tackle, and if swans come near you when you're fishing, stop and wait till they go away, because this does more harm than anything else.
Since the 1980s. This is mainly due to the banning of lead fishing weights and a better understanding from most anglers of the potential harm caused by discarding fishing tackle.